Hello everyone, back into today's video. We're going to have a look at the weather going out towards the second week of December, taking us towards the middle of December really in today's video. It looks like it's going to be staying quite cold really across many parts of the country. And patterns again quite interesting again as we move through next week and into the weekend after next. It also might start to build some high pressure across the country. Maintaining quite cold weather and perhaps bringing us a risk of frost and fog and maybe even some easterly winds as we get towards the middle of the month. Now, I'll look at that in a moment. Before I get on video, I want to talk about the advertising. There'll usually be a video ad overlaying my web videos at GazWebVids.com. Please play those video ads. You'll be supporting GazWebVids.com by doing that. I want to mention Gav Shop as well. You can click on any of the Gav Shop buttons on my pages here at GazWebVids.com, go through to Gav Shop, and from there click on the Amazon banners and go through to Amazon.co.uk. You'll be able to buy anything you want at all for Christmas at Amazon, and at the same time you'll be supporting GazWebVids.com as well. So we'll start off with the GFS ensembles. These are temperature and precipitation ensembles. The temperatures here indicated by the lines in the middle of the graph, the precipitation indicated by the spikes at the bottom. This is upper air temperatures that we're looking at here, but it's really useful for seeing what's going on the surface as well, or at least most of the time it is. Some situations it's not as useful, such as under high pressure in winter, but generally it is quite useful for working out what's happening on the surface. So the red line here, the thick red line, is the seasonal average. That's where we should be at this time of year, the end of November and into the first week or two of December. The lines here are all the members of the ensemble, and the white line is the average, and we can see that actually we're below average at the moment. It's quite cold. It's been a very frosty start this morning, Friday morning, across many parts of the country, quite icy as well. And these lines are staying below average for the next couple of days. Certainly going to be quite a cold weekend. Then we spike up as we go into the start of next week. That's in association with an area of low pressure that's coming in off the Atlantic. But very quickly we go back into the cool to cold regime. And then really the trend through the ensemble is to keep temperatures very much below the seasonal average. Remember, red is the seasonal average. Most of the ensemble members and the average of the ensemble, the white line, staying below that red line. So for the foreseeable future really, once we get beyond the slightly less cold or slightly milder interlude on Monday, for the foreseeable future it looks like it's going to be staying really quite chilly. Precipitation spikes, we've got some quite heavy rain coming up associated with that spike in the temperatures on Monday. There's the precipitation spikes there, and then perhaps another very unsettling interlude around the 6th to say the 9th of December, but beyond that it looks as though we've got a drying trend taking place, and that's probably as high pressure starts to build in. So we have a look at the temperature anomalies for not just Britain but the whole of Europe for the next week, Friday the 30th to Friday the 7th of December. Don't see this very often. Most of the continent, just about all of the continent really, is average to below average. Some areas such as some parts of Italy around average, and again around eastern parts of Spain there around average, but really most parts of the continent below average to some degree. We're forecast to be anything between around 2 and 4 degrees below average. The most intense area below average actually up over Scandinavia, Norway there, forecast to be, would you believe, up to 8 to 10 degrees below average. So a very cool to cold period coming up really across much of the continent. Go right way down towards Cyprus to find anything above average, and down in towards southern parts of Russia as well. But really it's a cold sort of scene across much of the continent for the next week. And here's the reason why it's so cold up over Scandinavia in the coming few days. These are the upper air temperatures. We can see we're well below average, very cold up there over Scandinavia with minus 15 isotherm up there, even a little bit lower than minus 15 at 850 millibars in one or two places. So that's where the very cold air is going to be. But most of Europe here, we can see most of Europe is actually going to be on the cool side. So if we run through the charts, we can see that for Monday we've got this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic. This is going to be giving us that warmer or less cold spike really on Monday as it brings rain in across the country. Don't think there'll be too much snow with this, maybe some up over northern England, central southern Scotland, but the main problem with this could be freezing rain on Sunday night, because it's going to be very cold before it arrives on Sunday evening. Very hard frost setting in on Sunday evening. Then the rain will push through. How quickly those temperatures lift up is going to be the deciding factor on whether we get any freezing rain, but I think there is the risk of seeing some fairly widespread ice on first thing on Monday morning with that rain falling onto frozen surfaces. But then the temperatures will lift up a little bit and any ice should clear away. So Monday we have this low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. As we go beyond this into Tuesday, that low pressure starts to move away into the North Sea, and that'll begin to set us up into a much colder sort of regime of northerly winds coming back through the middle part of next week. So for the GFS, by the time we get through to the middle of next week, we're in a cold sort of northerly airflow, but things are still quite messy. We've got this low pressure up over Iceland, low pressure in the Atlantic, and that low pressure starts to move down across the country as we go into Friday. This is probably in the detail not quite right, but certainly there's a trend I think through the middle of next week to turn it quite cold and then to bring an area of low pressure into that later on next week. So there is the risk of snow in some parts of the country later next week, but it's a long way off and I'll be keeping you updated over the next few days. But in any case, we'll move that low pressure through probably Thursday, Friday, taking anything from rain, sleet or snow across the country. And then there's the signs of the high pressure beginning to build as that low pressure clears out. So by the time we get through to Saturday, everything's becoming much more simpler really, with high pressure setting in across the country. And then that high pressure starts to become quite a major and intense feature as we go through into the second week of the month. 1,040 millibars there right over the top of the British Isles. That'll be giving us a lot of cold weather, probably lots of frost, probably a lot of fog as well, if that's right. So we might have a really frosty, foggy sort of spell coming up into the second week of the month. Now beyond this, and this is very sort of speculative, but the GFS this morning is trying to take that high pressure up to Scandinavia and set up an easterly wind. Now you remember a couple of weeks ago, or last week, we was suggesting we'd be getting an easterly wind setting in now, and it's not really come off. It has turned cold, but we've not really seen an easterly blast. So you have to take these charts with a bit of a pinch of salt really when they're a long way out. This is 276 hours away, Tuesday the 11th of December. You have to take this with a bit of a pinch of salt because the models at lower resolution, which they are as they go further out, do find it easier to set up these Scandinavian highs and easterly winds. And when it gets into the more reliable time frame, you start to get spoilers, really spoiler areas of low pressure that sort of interfere with the pattern developing that the model can't see when it's at a lower resolution. So you have to take this with a bit of a pinch of salt, but that's certainly the trend from the GFS this morning, to take that high pressure up to Scandinavia, pull the winds right back towards Russia and start to bring in a biting easterly wind as we go towards the middle of the month. Now the ECMWF is very similar for next week. We've got that low pressure in the North Sea that starts off on Monday, coming in across the country by Wednesday. It's sitting in the North Sea, putting down this cold northerly wind once again. So any uplift in the temperatures early next week will quickly drop away again, I think, through to the middle of next week. And then we're into that cold air in the latter stages of next week, and we've got this area of low pressure out in the Atlantic as well, coming into that cold air. So again, there is the suggestion that we might see a wintry mix of rain, sleet or snow across the country later next week as that low pressure pushes into the colder air. But again, it's a long way off. I'm going to have to try and firm up on it over the next few days. And then again, as we go beyond that into next weekend, we're starting to get the suggestion here of high pressure building in across the country as that low pressure clears away into the north, into the North Sea and into the continent. We start to build that ridge in across the country. So by the time we get through to Monday the 10th of December, this is 240 hours away, 10 days away. We've got a big build of high pressure there over Scandinavia, stretching back in towards Russia. And again, if you was to run this on another 24 hours, which would again be 276 hours away, you would probably be setting up an easterly wind again. So that's certainly the suggestion in the models that for a while we'll get a build of pressure next weekend, turning it very frosty, foggy, and then after that, towards the middle of the month, we might start to reach that high pressure up to Scandinavia and set up an easterly wind. But it's very speculative, that I don't want to say too much about it just at the moment. So you have a look at the Canadian model of the GEM, and that's a little bit different for Monday the 10th. Again, this is 240 hours away, 10 days away. This has us in a very strong, very cold northerly wind with high pressure really building through the Atlantic, going up towards Iceland and Greenland. A classic sort of northerly blast there with that, but it's not that well supported in the models this morning, so I don't know if we can take that too seriously. But in any case, it looks like staying quite cold really as we go into November. Really quite chilly sort of weather coming up, probably a lot of frost, and we will have that warmer spike on Monday, but it's not going to last long. I think the trend really through at least until the middle of December is to be quite cold on the cold side. Possibly with a risk of snow later next week in some parts of the country, but I'll really have to firm up on that over the next few days. And as we go towards the middle of the month, second week of the month, high pressure probably takes over for a while, giving us some very frosty, foggy sort of weather. Maybe the chance that we'll hook it up to Scandinavia, pulling an easterly wind as we go towards the middle of the month, but that's pretty uncertain and speculative. But staying cold, that's the main idea of this video, well into December. That's it for now. Come back tomorrow. I'll be doing the week ahead forecast. We'll be having a detailed look at weather for the week ahead, maybe trying to firm up a little bit on that wintry risk later next week. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.